Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Amber with Helps Too, and you are watching or listening to the Creatives Conversations. So you might notice that today's format is a little bit different. Normally we have our director, Gabriella, with us, but she has asked me to run today's episode because we are here with a very special guest who happens to be my significant other, my boyfriend. This is Andrew Trac. He goes by Andy, but yes. And I brought him on today because he is a business owner and also a creative in his own way. So he's on our podcast this week, but he also has his own podcast called Brew Conversations. And yeah, what else do you do? So you have a podcast, but you also have a business.
Yes, so I have a consulting company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we teach stage 1 and stage 2 business building. And kind of our mission overall is to educate the creative driven individual on how to assist him or her in their pursuit of their passion, their artistic drive, and build that in such a way that marries their passion, profit, and fulfillment.
Okay,
altogether.
So you guys help people basically build a business.
Yep.
Do you start them from like ground up or?
We start them from ground up. We really are the how type of people at this company that really kind of just anchor these creatives to the ground.
Okay.
Because creatives like to be on the cutting edge of discovery and exploring different ideas. They're very open to just playing around with potential.
Yeah.
And that's very good for creatives to have. And that's really probably what really drives them to get out of bed every day. But also when it comes time to implement, they're going to need to know how to do that.
Right. Okay. So today we're actually going to be talking about how to build a business model, which since this is a podcast for creatives, that doesn't necessarily sound like a super creative topic. It's not like, some of our other topics that we've done. But in reality, this is something that creatives really need, and a lot of creatives lack, is the knowledge of how to take their ideas and actually monetize them, actually start a business, actually sell their product, sell their music, and actually make it financially. And so that's why Andy's going to share with us today some about building a business model. And this is like he just explained, something that this is what you do, as your side business. And so you have a lot of experience with this. You've even taken some companies with that have started at ground zero and raised them up. That's the word I was looking for. Raised them up. And so why don't you go ahead and tell us, if you were talking to a creative today and they just do their craft, they have no idea how to actually implement it into the business world. They don't know how to make a sale, how to start a business with it. What is the first thing that you would tell them?
Basically, the business or the individual, actually the individual and the artist, they vary across the segment of, their community, meaning there can be people who are really into ceramics, who are very into making music, making art, painting, making flower bouquets. Either way, regardless of how, we're going to start here, which is number one, identifying either a vacuum in the market or just a lack of a product or a service. So number one is finding what's lacking in your community.
Okay, so, that answer surprises me because, we've talked about this a little bit, and I kind of thought that your first answer would be finding out your why.
So that is very important. And the reason I bring up all those different creatives is because these are characteristics across the board, across the industry. No matter what business you go into, you're going to have about four of the same characteristics. So you're going to have one, identification of a problem, or a lack of a service, or some kind of vacuum that you can see. Number two is you have objectives. Third, you have kind of a potential solution to the problem. You craft a potential solution. And four, you have an implementation plan. So those first, you got to start there. And it is funny that you brought up the start with why, because that is important, to know why you're going to do something. But I think with creatives, sometimes they already have that answer.
That's true.
So specifically with this question is like,
that's true, and it's not. I think there's a lot of creatives out there that don't even know why they do what they do. They just know that they like it, and they just
and that's
do
totally
it.
fine. And in fact, if that's what you like, that's already a good starting point, because in the endeavor of building a business, you're going to have to repeat a lot of the same task every day, and that's the part where creatives don't. That's the pill that creatives don't want to swallow. So if you're going to start with building a business, you might as well start with something you like. You might as well start in something you like, and it's a two-edged sword, and we can talk about that later, but you can really begin with your current passion. So if you're really into ceramics, then just get into ceramics and start figuring out like where in the market you can fit in.
Right.
There is going to be room for you. You just have, you have to put intention and have a good plan written out.
Okay, so what would that plan look like? Like if they don't even know where to start, like, and they know, okay, I want to do ceramics, but now what? Like, I have some pieces ready, but I don't know how to turn that into a business or a business model.
So, but the business model overall is just like a blueprint. It's basically a blueprint to say, hey, I'm at position A. How do I get to position B? Which is like what you're asking. I would start listing out by some objectives. It could be a weekly objective. It could be a monthly objective.
Is
different
objective
grains.
Interchangeable with goal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can have BHAGs, which are big, hairy, audacious goals that are kind of on the horizon that you really want to journey towards.
Okay, so those are like longer term goals.
Yeah, those are long-term goals, and those sometimes will be easier depending on the individual to identify. Like saying, I want to be the best artist in this area, in this zip code. That is a pretty audacious goal, but it might be in their interest, and that might be enough to get them out of bed. But whereas like it could be as small of a goal as I want to literally sit down and write the plan. I don't want to just ruminate in my mind. Maybe a goal is I want to take out a piece of paper and write down and capture on paper what I'm potentially thinking, because like again, creatives are really they ruminate a lot. They deliberate a lot. Right. They're probably kinesthetic.
I feel like I know a lot of creatives who like get overwhelmed because they just have so many thoughts in their heads. Right. Like, and that's, I think, a really common characteristic of creatives is that they're kind of usually internal processors. And so all these ideas, all these goals, all these plans are buzzing around inside of them. Yep. And they just need to get it out.
Yep. And so the question being like, how do you cut out the noise and find your frequency and how to move on to the next phase? Because you want to be why and how. And
what do you mean by why and how? Because I feel like most people just hearing those words, like we've said it a couple times on the podcast, but we haven't really expounded on that. Like, what does that mean to be a why person or a how person?
So a why person they're kind of characterized by idealism. They sit around, they imagine how the world could be or how a situation could play out, and how they might have a hand in it. Like not only do they...
So that's like the visionary type person.
They have a vision. Yep. They have a vision. They have a picture of how the landscape should be or how they want it to be. And really, like, they are kind of if you imagine, the forest and trees metaphor is pretty common. The people who have a really strong why, they see the whole forest. And people with a how, they're more the detailed people who see the individual tree. But let's just take, for example, let's just talk about one tree, for example. The why person or the visionary person will be somebody who climbs to the top of the tree and looks out. Looks out, because they're using their vision to see what's around the area,
what's
the environment.
Surroundings.
Right. So even if we were to just take it down to one scale, a single tree, whereas the how person is like, okay, how do I care for this tree that's in front of me? How do I make sure it's well nurtured, well watered, it's being trimmed in the right areas? That's where they really thrive.
So they're more like, the how people are more detail oriented. They can look like at the thing that's right in front of them and they're like, how can I take care of this? Yep. But the why person is more broad strokes, like they see the whole picture, they see the whole vision in front of them. And so you're saying that creatives need to be both.
Yes, creatives either need to be both, or they need to find a balancing person or a balancing network. Okay. So oftentimes, because creatives can get stuck in their head, having external inputs and outputs, like different mediums, can really anchor them. So that's like even talking about having a piece of paper out and putting your thoughts on paper. That's already a part. You're forming a partnership right there.
Gotcha.
It's like, so you're not in your head anymore when you're just ruminating and just thinking.
It's like
you're like capturing it and then you're looking at it. You're analyzing it.
It's like accountability. Like you have it in front of you now, so you see it and it's something you have to do. Like, I want to sell one piece of art. Like,
yes,
that's
and that could be a great goal.
Accountable.
That could be a goal. So like, sometimes creative people can feel like they're on an island and there's no one around the community, and it could very well be that there's nobody they can talk to or nobody they can have access to.
Sure.
You know, so partnerships aren't always necessarily in the form of another person. They could really be in partnership with the environment you're around. So like,
and what do you mean by that?
So journaling, having a practice of writing often, just to form your thoughts. That's a good partnership you can build. If you don't have anybody who really knows what you want, you can always have a dialogue with yourself in the form of writing.
Okay. So for those creatives who are wanting a community or wanting partnerships, like, what would you say to them? How would you suggest that they find someone? Because you have a business partner, and I think you guys, you can talk more about this, but I think you guys are very different, you and your business partner. And that kind of keeps you accountable to him, and he's accountable to you, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship that, you know, I think one of you takes on the why role and the other one takes on the how, and that helps the business a lot. And so, like, first of all, can you tell us a little more about your business partnership and how that has like benefited you, and then kind of speak to creatives who are looking for something like that?
Yeah, so my business partner, we were fortunate enough to go to the same school during our college years, and we were both in the business school, and we were kind of in the same major of sorts, but that's kind of like a good, what would you call it, like a fortuitous like opportunity, like
Yeah.
it just so happened that we had to be in the same school. Like, I don't know if I had met him in any other context if we would have been business partners.
That's fair. Yeah.
So you're asking like
So
what he's
like,
or?
yeah, how does that benefit you and your business that you have a business partner, that you work with Eric, and like what role would you say you take on versus him, and how does that like propel you to like, you know, iron sharpens iron to like really help each other?
We're both we are both why and how people as we come to find out, although we have different fortes. So oftentimes we take the opposite role. If one is just to help each other out, we really stress test each other's thoughts. So that's one really benefit right there. So Eric might have an idea, he'll throw it at me like a backboard, and I'll just listen to it, I'll field it, and then I'll start asking him some stress questions like, have you thought about this? Did you really think about that? Like, what are you going to do if this scenario plays out? So it's really, you are having a dialogue, you're having feedback.
Right.
And you are purposely playing devil's advocate. So what you want to do is play devil's advocate as the how person.
And I think a lot of creatives lack that. They just think, I'm just going to try this thing. I'm going to do my project, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to have so much fun and meet great people. And then, like, they're so shocked when that's not how it goes, because they haven't even thought about, like, scenarios where things don't go their way, where nobody's interested in what they're trying to do, or, you know, people are even coming against what they're trying to do.
Because now you have to contend with different opinions and different ideas and different like reactions.
Right.
And unless you plan for that, you're just reactionary. So having a business partner helps divide the labor of finding potential pitfalls.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so if people are looking for a business partner, and you were fortunate to find one, you know, in school, but like, you know, if they don't have that, if they're already finished with college or they didn't go to college, you know, like, is there anything that you suggest for like people to meet other people in their craft?
Go to craft shows for one. Go to classes that teach that particular skill. Different conventions, different guest speakers. Find a guest speaker in your area that is talking about a subject you like, and go to that presentation, do some networking, have some conversations with people like, hey, it's easier to start because you're already attending the same conference. You both know why you guys are there. You guys can expound upon that. Like, hey, I'm here to learn more about XYZ. I see that you're also here. It signals to me that you're also interested. Maybe we can have a conversation. Avoid the bars. Avoid just kind of like places where a lot of alcohol is consumed to talk about this, because people are more relaxed when they have alcohol, but they're also more loose-lipped, and it's easy to it's easy to share ideas there, but what you can't really gauge when you're out in a social setting like that is commitment. So
that's true.
Everybody can talk a lot. Everybody enjoys talking. Everybody has that social skill, and everybody's more relaxed, and they can talk openly about different ideas. But if you're looking for a how person, you probably won't find much success there.
That's fair. Yeah. So I want to talk more, and I'm really surprised you didn't lead out with this. I want to talk about finding your why if you don't already have it, because I think, like I said, a lot of creatives know that, what they like to do. Like, I like to paint and I like to make illustrations, but I don't necessarily, until I've like stopped and taken the time to dig and understand my why, then like that's going to make it really hard to actually build a business model and do something that's going to be sustainable over the years, unless like I actually understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I know you talk a lot about finding your why and how to do it. And so can you kind of give some advice to creatives who don't know their why and like how they can find it and the importance of that?
How to find your why. It's a lot of exploration. Early on the stages, like, it's all about exploration and gathering as much input as you can. And you don't have to necessarily commit to everything you find out in the world, but, is basically cast your net pretty wide.
Okay.
Start with casting your net wide in things that elicit an emotion from you, both good and bad.
Okay.
So go attend things that really pump you up, really jazz you up, really just excite you. And make note of it. Take note of it. Take the time, like after the event happens, sit and reflect. Like, why was I feeling? Like, why did I feel such emotion? Like, identify the people who were there. Identify the subject and the objects that were in the room. That like, what really like gave me energy. And then after you do that, do the reverse of that. Say, okay, what really drains me? What did I not like attend to? What was I hesitant about?
Right.
So the first part of finding your why is really explore the options.
Okay.
Explore your options, explore your area, explore your network, explore your community. I'm a big advocate, and my company is also a big proponent of always teaching creators how to find a mission that's going to benefit their community.
Oh, okay.
Try to keep it local because that's where you live.
Right.
It's easy to try and be idealistic about a community that's thousands of miles away or 400 miles away, to someone that's not in your backyard. It's easy to talk about that because then it's hard because the secret, the thing that people, they don't like to talk about is when they get to the how and they don't know how to answer, they can just leave it alone. And, sometimes people use that as a barrier to keep themselves from progressing. So sometimes people choose to not think about how they're going to do something. They just want to keep on talking about why. Okay. Anyway. So start local, maybe it's like you already have a career, talk to your coworkers, talk to family members, talk to friends, just have conversations with them about the way the community is. Oftentimes, like, you ask different people, they'll tell you something different, and then maybe you find one that really excites you, and you start pulling on that string more. So keeping it local and exploring, that's really the first step.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's also value too to reading up on people in your industry and what they're doing and their why, because a lot of times, especially if it comes to nonprofits, but even with creatives, a lot of people share their whys and their mission statements or, whatever it is, their bigger picture, their big vision on their website, or if it's, an artist, maybe it's on their, like if it's a musical artist, I'm just thinking maybe it's on their like Spotify page when you read their bio or whatever. And so like you can find people in your industry too that are, already making it, already kind of like have found their why, have found their how, and are really going for it. And like kind of, you don't have to do exactly what they're doing. I don't believe that that's even beneficial, but to get an idea, to get a gauge of like, I'm someone who I can't really actualize anything until I have like a sample. And so even in art, like before I ever start a project, if I'm going to draw something, paint something, I always start with finding a reference picture. And so even if I don't draw it exactly the way it is on the reference picture or even remotely close, I need to look at something that will help me kind of like take the image in my mind and get it out, And so like having an example for you as a creative of someone who is in your industry, who's succeeding at their craft as a business, not just, making cool art, but like actually succeeding as a business, if that's your goal, just find them, research them, find them. If, maybe they'll even answer you if you reach out to them and ask them what their why is. People are surprising.
Yeah, ask them like what got them started.
Exactly.
They're often they'll probably give one or two different sentiments in the response. Like
right.
They'll either have like a famine mentality or a feast mentality, meaning famine meaning I'm gonna hoard all the secrets, I'm not gonna tell you,
right,
because you'll eventually be my competition and I might lose to you. And there are plenty of people like that
sure.
out there. But then there's the kind of the feast mentality, is like just because I have some doesn't mean you can't have any. So therefore I'm gonna share with you. So you want to keep your eyes open and your ears active, listening, like what kind of sentiment they're sharing with you, because they might give you advice that's gonna walk you off a cliff.
Sure.
And they might give you advice that has a nugget of truth or nugget of gold inside, and you kind of like, okay, this person is sharing something with me that I can bring forward to another conversation with somebody else. And
right.
So the feast of famine kind of response, like with business owners, like that's a good start.
Yeah.
Because you want to find people who want to share the wealth.
Yeah, there's some out there. It's not everyone. They're kind of few and far apart, but you'd be surprised at responses you get, because I've gotten responses from reaching out on DMs on Instagram to, pretty famous artists, and they've responded back to me and given me advice on, or told me which brush they're using, even the little things like that I ask questions about. And so, like I think there's a lot of value to researching people in your industry, and also understanding origin stories, because I think you mentioned like ask them how they got started. Like I think a lot of people's why comes from their origin. Like I started art because I needed a way to express what I was feeling or whatever. And so I think there's a lot of value in both of those things, asking for advice or like asking why they do what they do, but also asking about origin stories. So I just want to get from you some really actionable steps right now for creatives. And I think this is the last thing we'll talk about on this episode. So creatives out there who, now we've kind of told them about why they need to know their why and some kind of like steps they can take to understand why they do what they do and to find a business partner. But like now they're ready to build their business model. Like what do they need to do? Do you have some steps you can walk us through?
I'm a big advocate of always writing notes and taking notes.
Okay.
You could do things like a stream of consciousness recording. You could do that. Like, this podcast is kind of like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Just write down things that excite you, things that don't excite you, things that energize you, things that don't energize you. Write that all down. Don't worry about being too exhaustive. Like, just put, like, if you even have an inkling that it might be fun or not fun, just write it down. There's really no limits. There's no limits to how much you can put on this paper. Obviously you don't want to be circular in what you write down, but start there, and then think about some objectives that you want to set that tie back to the first thing. Sometimes it's easier to pick an objective first and then figure out how you're going to get there. Some people like to work backwards. They sometimes really do like to work backwards, and some people think linearly, like in a forward fashion. But so start with the next step is start with the objectives.
Okay. Would you say like how many short-term goals should you set and how many long-term goals should you set to start so you don't overwhelm yourself?
It depends on how long you're willing to commit.
Okay.
And this part it has to be an open negotiation with yourself and your business partner if you happen to have one. Not all businesses need to have a business partner, by the way. But
that's true.
It could be something as like for 1 month, for 3 months, 6 months, to a year, 3 to 5 years. But for the sake, and that's really 0 to 5 years is really what we call short term. Mm-hmm. Really, anything like past that, it's like we're only once you got starting to get to the 8 to 10 to 12 year range is that kind of like intermediate kind of like timeline. But for the 0 to 5 years, let's stay
there.
We're talking about how 0 to 5 years, like how much? Yeah, because we're just starting. Pick 3 outcomes that you kind of want from your business.
Okay.
I would suggest not making one of those outcomes. I wouldn't put making money at the top of your list.
Okay.
Maybe make that number 3 or number 4, because if you put it at number 1, it really gets in the way of what you really want, of what your passion is, because then you're tying it to $1, and creatives already have a hard time monetizing their work. So
true.
If you're a creative, don't put dollars at the top of your list as an objective.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you're back to square one, not knowing how to get there. So you want to, and this is about marrying creatives with their passion and profit and fulfillment. At least at Rebel Nature Consulting, that's what we always try to explain. It's like we're going to try to marry your passion, your profit, and fulfillment. So put profit maybe third.
Okay.
Put dollars third.
Okay.
But the first one might be like sell one piece of art.
Sure. Yeah.
A second one might be like find a community.
Yeah.
And that would take some time. Like those are like kind of short-term objectives.
Yeah.
Thankfully, with the internet, you can really, if you know how to find the right channel to sell your product, you can probably sell one product of your art.
That's true.
I mean,
I've even sold at least one thing on Etsy.
At least one?
Yeah.
So make your objective. Sell at least one thing.
Yeah.
One thing that you created and has your name on it. That's going to be a small win. It's going to be a small victory. It's going to be, it'll be part of your portfolio, which it'll be a good boost of encouragement.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of portfolio, start putting your portfolio together.
That's a good one.
Having your art scattered all over the place, whether it's like around your house, around your room, or on your Google Drive or on your computer. It's like start gathering them in one place where you can really review them, look over them, and make some comparisons. Like maybe this piece is what I want to sell. Maybe this piece is what. So like really just have all your work out in front of you. Like take the time, print everything out. If it's a print word, like if it's something that can be printed, print it out so you can touch it. If it's
like music, you can't.
Yeah, music. Well, music you could put in a playlist. You listen to them all. You could have like listening parties. You could do, live streams of your music, and just see what the environment is telling you.
Gotcha.
So step one, like sell one thing, sell one of your crafts, and two, and kind of like simultaneously that can happen. Put your portfolio together.
Yeah.
Put all your creations together. So that's probably the first 2.
Okay. Yeah, those are some really good steps. So I think that's really it. I will ask you if you have any final advice, just anything for creatives that you would say to them. If they're, just struggling right now, they need a word of encouragement, what would you say?
Finding someone who has a different opinion from you and is open to dialogue, that's going to be, something that's really helpful and that can get you out of a rut. Finding a community and finding dialogue is going to be important. If it has to be online, be very careful, be very guarded with how that happens, because you don't really know somebody's intention over the internet.
That's true.
If you can find a person, find a community, like find, somebody that you can share ideas with, that would probably be a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Where can the people find you? Where can they find, first of all, where's your podcast?
So my podcast is called Cold Brew Conversations. You can follow the Instagram at Cold Brew Conversation Podcast. I can't remember right now.
Oh no.
I think it's Cold Brew Conversations Podcast.
Okay,
yes.
we'll link it below.
We'll link it below. And then secondly, if you really want to find more about what we do and our philosophy of how we teach and guide, you can go to rebelnatureconsulting.com. There you'll find different plans that we start you out with. We'll start with we can go from 6 weeks spent together to 3 months. We talk about we'll give you documents how to like a template worksheet of your why, your objectives, your implementation plan, potential ideas, how you might solve a problem.
Yeah.
Identification of a problem is really that's your why in the business world. It's you need to figure out why you're opening your doors. Oftentimes it's because you're solving a problem. Coffee shops, for example, it's not so much as a problem that they see. It could be a lack of community that they find.
Yeah.
It could be a lack of space for creatives. That's why they open the doors. There's certain coffee shops like that. And you start looking around businesses too. Figure out, look at different businesses around you. They're all over the place, of course, and sit back and think, why are they here? Why are they open? What are they doing?
Yeah.
By investigating other businesses, you'll get more experience asking those same questions, and then you can start asking yourself those same questions. So
yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, so you guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.